Hello everyone and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name's David Edgar, I'm your host as always, and joining me this week is the tactical brain, the man with a brain the size of something very, very large indeed, maybe the gap between us and second place. It's Adam Thornton. Hello Adam.
I'm not sure it's that big, David, but thank you.
It's a pretty big gap.
Yeah, that's true, that is. You do like to say I'm a spod and I've got a very big brain, but that's just taking the piss, I think. There's not very many things in the world that are big enough in that gap, to be honest.
No. Canyons are smaller than the gap between first and second this season, as Rangers went 18 points clear yesterday, started the day off needing 13 more points to win the title, ended it needing 7. As Rangers racked up yet another victory, another big win as well. Nice to see us back scoring goals after a few 1-0s, although you get the same 3 points for a 1-0 as you get for a 4-1. But even so, it was good to see us playing a bit of football again and making things happen in the attacking third. And of course, Celtic went and lost to Ross County. But we'll start with Rangers because, Adam, I saw a stat yesterday by one of your brethren, the stats people. I've got a vision of you all living together in caves somewhere, coming out with whiteboards and showing each other these things. But it said that Celtic can still achieve the same points total that they got in their 8 and 9 in a row, or the 7, 8, 9 in a row seasons. That this isn't a case of Celtic dropping by a million miles. They've obviously dropped some, but this is a case of Steven Gerrard's Rangers team, project, whatever term you want to call it, growing up, maturing, and then just blowing everything out of the water.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at their losses up until St Mirren last month, it was only Rangers that had beaten them in the 2 games. Obviously, that's now 4. The draws are probably killing them a little bit this season. I don't think they're not far off double figures, I would imagine, on those. But yeah, I think it's a slight regression. You would fancy that is one of those stats that's kind of misleading, because that's going to be based on them winning every game, I would imagine, and we know that's very, very unlikely. So I would guess by the time we get to the end of the season they won't hit those targets, but with 8 games to go, for that still to be possible certainly does speak to, while the mood music around it and how they've managed to rack up some wins is slightly different. We can't take anything away from how well we've done, keeping ourselves 10 plus points ahead since October, I would guess. Really impressive on that side, and it just makes their season look even worse, which I'm absolutely here for.
Yeah, definitely. But I think that long-term listeners to the podcast will know that years ago, 5 years ago, when Rangers were really struggling, we always said we'd be intrigued to see what would happen if we could put Celtic under sustained pressure. And that meant post-Christmas. That meant keeping it going and not giving any indication of that they just had to hang on in there because we would burst. And we've seen what's happened this season with that Rangers have managed to do that. And I think it did dawn on them very early in the season that, hang on a minute here, they're not going to give us a free pass this year. We're going to have to earn it, and I think that pressure did get to them. But let's go back to Ibrox Sunday afternoon. Rangers taking on Dundee United. First things first, not a phrase I use that often, but a little bit of praise for Dundee United, Adam. They came to Ibrox, they played 2 up front. They're not going down. They're maybe going to finish in the top 6, but more likely they're not. And they came and they had a go. And fair dues, because, okay, you might argue, well, they've come away with a 4-1, whereas Kilmarnock came away with a 1-0. But I would argue that Dundee United in the opening 20 minutes, had they not come up against the human brick wall that is Alan McGregor, might have taken the lead. And then you've got a totally different game. So I would argue that, 4-1, but they came closer to getting something out of Ibrox, believe it or not, I think, than Kilmarnock or Motherwell, or a team who on paper got a better, closer result. They still ended up with nothing, whereas at least United, I think, could take some positives from that match yesterday.
Yeah, it was kind of similar to the first fixture against them in September, where they came and had a go. I'm led to believe that very shortly after that, they kind of reverted back to a more defensive style and tried to make themselves a wee bit harder to beat. But it seems like they've flipped again. And I thought Yeah, that opening 20-25 minutes, they were really impressive. We were cut open once or twice, which you never really like to see. There's a couple of decent saves for McGregor, but yeah, certainly I think Celtic are the unofficial opening 25 minutes trophy holders at Parkhead at Ibrox this season without actually winning a game, but they certainly came very close in terms of the number of chances. I think I counted 3 or 4 in that 20 or 25 minutes. I don't know if it's just where we're at with the season or anything, David, but it wasn't causing me any major anguish. There is just this general perception now that we're in the mid-90s and McGregor is channeling Andy Gorham, and he might make a couple of saves in the game. We might end up drawing a game as we've seen against Hamilton, but generally, if something happens, we've got enough to do anything really at this stage. So I wasn't exactly terrified by the start, especially given the exertions on Thursday night. But after that first 25 minutes, the manager actually mentioned after the game, I thought that was quite interesting. It was in the Rangers TV interview, as opposed to your press one, but he mentioned that they caused a good bit of problems, and it was clear their tactic was to come and have Clark and or a pair sit on Davis and try to block our build-up play that way, obviously trying to get us out to Balogun as opposed to Tavernier, and see if that caused an impact. And he actually said something I really enjoyed was the players figured out how to fix that problem on the pitch before the management team were able to get the information through to them, which I really liked. So the players tweaked that a little bit. Balogun stayed a little bit deeper. Aribo, we've seen in the early exchange, he started going over to the wide right hand side to try and get a wee bit of impact over there with Hadji. So I really liked that. It was interesting that although they did start well, Dundee United, the players solved that problem themselves and got themselves way ahead in the game.
Yeah, I thought it was something that we might need to deal with throughout the match, not specifically that, but more the fact that they're in the habit of turning and there's James Tavernier, and you know where he's going to be, and you know that he'll get up and down the wing, and he is involved in so much of our play, and it's not really fair to ask Leon Balogun to do the same job because he's not that type of player. He doesn't have the same skill set. I thought he filled in, quite well and adequately, but it's a sticking plaster. It wouldn't be a long-term solution. I think people realise that. But as you say, I think the players, after almost autopilot in the first 20 minutes or so, as you say, sort of went, right, okay, this isn't going to quite work. We have a tab-shaped hole over there, and we're going to need to adapt to that. Alan McGregor, though, that's why a Rangers goalkeeper, I think, is a sort of separate breed. Certain clubs have this type of goalkeeper, a Bayern Munich, a Juventus, teams that are not necessarily going to have shots rained in on them, but you've got to be alive to make the big saves when it matters. And the one from Shankland in particular, I thought was top-class goalkeeping.
Yeah, it was. That's a couple of times Shankland has had chances against us in the few games, and he hasn't managed to put one away. But yeah, time and again, I seen him get a little bit of criticism on Thursday night, which I thought was a little bit strange. I didn't think he was particularly at fault for any of the goals. Quite the opposite. So it was good to see him doing what he does for us in the early exchanges in this game. And I thought, we talk about, and Aribo's going to get all the plaudits from the game in terms of the goals, etc. But McGregor keeps us in the early 20 minutes or so, because it could have been 1 or 2-0 down, definitely in that stage. So he keeps us in it, and we go on to gives us a platform, as he does so often.
Yeah, and from that platform, we couldn't really get anything going in that opening 20 minutes. And as you say, the team figured out that they had to move the pieces on the board a little bit, and then began to get the grip in the midfield area. Ryan Jack went off injured. Glenn Kamara came on. I thought he added quite a bit into the midfield as well. But it was Joe Aribo for me that really was the spark, if you like, that got Rangers going and got us onto the front foot and began to just push a Dundee United side that was beginning, I thought, to think, oh, this could be our day. It just got them pushed back into their own box for the first time, really, in the match. And then from there, Rangers would go and get the goal. He's very much involved in it. Lovely little finish from Yanis Hadji. Probably won't get a lot of credit for that, but it is deliberate. It doesn't just hit off him and he doesn't just wave a foot at it. He opens his foot up, and it's a very deliberate deflection that does take it past the goalkeeper.
The thing I liked about this is probably this probably sums me up rather than anything else was that that's a great little finish from Hadji. You're right, the reactions for that. Being aware that that shot is a bit of a trundler and it's maybe not going to trouble the goalkeeper and just to stick a leg out and see if you can divert it. But Aribo on the right hand side of the box now. Okay, the manager mentioned he can play left-sided central midfield, right-sided central midfield, left forward, right forward, whatever we're calling them this week. But he was left-sided central midfielder, and we know how structured that role is when Kamara plays it. So he was in there to provide support to Barisic and Kent on that side. But he spent certainly the first half hour over on that right-hand side with Hadji, and that's where he picked up the ball and created that chance from. Remember the earlier chance as well that he slipped in for, can't remember who it was, but he completely outstripped the Dundee United left back for pace round the corner on that far side and cut the ball back. So he was out there a lot. So I really like the fact that in these type of games against teams that are bottom six, if you like, or just on that borderline.
Well, they are. I mean, it's not been disrespectful. They are.
It's good. It's good that we have that flexibility within the team to still maintain the defensive structure, but allow players like Aribo the freedom to roam. And these are the games that you need him and Hadji. We've spoken about that so often on the pod. It's great. We've got a team that performs really well in Europe, but you need the guys like Aribo and Hadji who are going to give you that magic in the game, in these type of games. It's not a disservice to them. It's stuffy defences. You've had a big midweek. You need these players to stand up, and I was delighted that not only did he do it, but that Hadji managed to get the goal as well.
Bit of luck with the second, Ryan Kent with the deflected shot. Manager spoke about it the other week, though. We got that absolute worldie from Ryan Jack, and he said, he's encouraging them to shoot more from outside the box. Yanis Hadji got the one against St Johnstone as well. Bit of luck, but you take it, and it's the old cliche about buy a ticket for the raffle, you might win. It comes off the defence, but that can happen when you've got that many defenders in the box. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm all for that. I know you might think in terms of what we do on Tactics Talk that I maybe wanted to pass the ball into the net. I love a long range goal. I'm always for it. Just hit it. It's brilliant. Maybe not when Ryan Christie does it to that extent, but certainly for us, as far as Kent and our
400 shots all in the North Sea, you mean?
Yeah. From Parkhead, yeah. As far as like Kent, Aribo and Hadji go, I think they can be a little bit too intricate sometimes. Aribo especially wants to take that extra touch, wants to do that 15 step over and beat the man again. And I'm sure we'll come on to an example of what he does when he doesn't do that in the second half. And I think that's just key. If there is a packed defence and you're not getting through, it's not a bad thing. Just have a go from outside the box. And like you said, both of those shots were half chances, low quality if we're talking expected goals, but sometimes, like you said, you need to gamble on it.
Yeah, and it came off 2-0. The game was done. And what I found quite interesting was, even at 1-0, I think teams who start well against us can go one of two ways, particularly at Ibrox. One is that they gain in confidence from that. And the other is what I think United did, which was, we're going to regret those missed chances. And as soon as Rangers put them on the back foot, I thought you could sort of sense a sea change from Dundee United. Just the way their players were talking to each other even. I thought that you could sense that they thought we'd blown this a little bit. And when Rangers got the goal, it was almost like confirmation bias for them. That I knew that was gonna, I knew we were gonna fuck it up as soon as we missed those chances. And at 2-0, it just felt completely done and dusted. But I was impressed with the way Rangers came out the second half and didn't think we've had a tough game Thursday, we've a tough game coming up. They went for it, ran into the 4-0 lead, and then maybe did relax and concede towards the end, which is obviously not fantastic and led to a very pissed off Alan McGregor. But they could have made it more difficult for themselves than they did. And I think that's been a hallmark of the side this season, Adam. On a sort of larger thing, one of the themes of this season for me is there have been a lot of occasions when this Rangers team could have made a mess of things. They have been given the opportunity to make a mess of things, and they don't.
Yeah, I was annoyed at that goal as well, but really because I'm quite obsessed with this single figure goal difference against. I really wanted to see that. Given that we're at 9 now, goals against, I'm not really sure it's going to happen. It's probably unrealistic for us not to concede in the next 8 games. So I was annoyed about that, because I'm thinking That would be a brilliant record to get. That's the stage we're at now. We want goals against records. We know we won the league. We know we've done this. We know we're going to go unbeaten, but we want the goals against record. I think you're right. We've been playing about with a theory. I think the last Tactics Talk pod that me and Ali did was around the fact that since the last Dundee United game, actually, at Tannadice, Rangers have scored less goals. It's a fact. I think it was halved from memory in terms of the goals that have been scored. Quality of chances are not as high as they were. And we mentioned that on the pod, that usually when you're talking about it like that and you're maybe looking at a statistical model, you think, okay, there's going to be a bump in the road coming soon and the results aren't going to match up. But it's never really felt that way. It's actually been so impressive to see that we blew teams away for that 4 months. I think it was 3 and a bit goals per game was the average, and that's maybe down to like 1.5, 1.6 now. But the theory that we had, that we were playing about as a possible, was Dundee United away was right after Europe finished, and that was a pretty intensive 4 months. We then knew we had, I don't know how many games it is, David, 12, 15 games in a row in the league, obviously St Mirren and the cup aside. Through winter, through pitches, through all that sort of stuff, through lots of injuries, etc. And we did wonder whether the team were just doing enough is a really disrespectful thing, I think, to other teams, but just playing at a level that they knew they were going to get the job done for that 12-15 game spell. And again, I mentioned on Twitter, I think it was to you and maybe a couple other guys, that now that was done and Europe was back, this team raises our standards in Europe, and I think we would see an upturn in, not necessarily performances, but certainly an upturn in attacking display. And I think 4 goals away in Belgium and 4 goals on the weekend there certainly reinforces that. It seems like we need that buzz of Thursday, Sunday football. We need the European stage. The manager mentioned as well that on Thursday the uptick in terms of what you need to do in Europe is so much more that when the players are back up at that level, it's only natural that will seep into performances. I remember we used to get really worried about the players coming back and having a hangover from Europe in the recovery time, and we might start games sluggishly. It's the opposite now. It feels like we need that and we feed off that. We've got through the winter. I think everybody listening will think they've got through the winter and we see sunny days ahead. And maybe it's just what the team have done as well. They've dug in over winter and won the league in that period. And now it's goal time and it's goals galore, hopefully.
Yeah, I think that there is something in that. And it's not new that you do go through this period in Scotland where you start the season and the sun's shining, the pitches are good, and Rangers will quite often, Celtic as well, unfortunately, over the last few years, will be battering teams and playing some great stuff and everything's hunky-dory. And then you go into winter, conditions are rotten, teams are battling for their lives, so they tend to string, a lot of men across the defence. Conditions help that because they'll try to break up good attacking football, and it's about, well, can you come through this? Can you get the wins when you're not firing, when conditions aren't optimal? And we couldn't, and that's why we haven't won titles. We couldn't do that. We needed the conditions to be in our favour. Things had to be going well for us to be at our best, and this season that hasn't been the case. Rangers have gutted it out. They've got over the line when they've needed to, and now when things do get a bit better, with the possible exception of pitches, there seems to be a UK-wide issue this season with pitches. The one at Ibrox yesterday was baldier than me, and suitable only for pigeon grazing for large part. What was with those pigeons, by the way?
I don't know. It was so weird that when I was watching Rangers TV, it kind of felt like they were superimposed at points because the camera juddered a little bit. And Kevin Thompson kept mentioning them, but the fact it was such a cluster of them was hilarious. And
they were not leaving. I mean, they didn't matter. Players could run through them. They would fly away and sit somewhere else. They were like, nope, that's our pitch. And to be fair, I suppose if they live there, through the week, they're probably a bit miffed that folk are turning up on a Sunday. Or just try to chill on a Sunday afternoon, watch a pigeon equivalent of Songs of Praise, and suddenly they've got all these guys charging about. But yeah, it was a wee bit disconcerting that they kept flying about. But look, the pitches are going to be like this. It's one, the weather, and two, the fact that they've not really had a chance to recover, which we've seen in the past. You're seeing it all over the UK. It certainly isn't even just a Scottish thing this season. Joe Aribo did get that goal that you were talking about earlier. Said afterwards he's been practising, as he put it, just putting the laces through it. That was like George Albert's. If you can do that, Joe, could you do it a wee bit more often, or try it a wee bit more often? Because my God, you could have had 2 keepers in there. They weren't stopping that one.
It was a cracker. I love that when he just slides across the goalkeeper and it goes. And I actually didn't realise until I watched it back again this morning. It's very, very close to off the post and in, which is one of my favourite finishes. It just hits the side net. But yeah, the fact that there was no backlift as well, he's not had any opportunity to get much power in it. That's a decent goalkeeper as well, but he had absolutely zero chance. It was a brilliant hit.
Well, the goalkeeper was determined to make you look like a fool then a few minutes later when he had a quick game of volley with Alfredo Morelos and smashed it. I did like this goal, one, because it was funny, but two, it's not a fluke. In a way it is, but we're 3-0 up and Alfredo is still running and putting pressure on the goalkeeper and he gets his reward. He's there for it to hit off him and go in. And there must be a temptation at 3-0 up to not bother your arse with that, to think, I won't make this run. But he did. And, okay, the goalie's made a mistake, great. But if you're not there to capitalise on it, then it's not a mistake. Things are going perfectly well for the goalkeeper. And that's why I like that goal. We tend to focus on the error rather than think, well, actually, he's done pretty well there.
Yeah, he definitely clocked the foul warming up on the sidelines, didn't he? I thought, I'm just going to try and hammer myself and get this ball and see what happens. Yeah, he deserved it. I love the fact that he'll celebrate any kind of goal like it's a 30-yard.
I love that. That's a striker, right? One of my pet hates are strikers who hit corners, right? Don't do that. Right, you shouldn't ever want to not be in the box. And you're spot on. Didn't matter to Alfie, it could be a 30-yarder, it could be in Europe, it could be the 5th in a 5-0 win in the League Cup against Alloa. It doesn't bother him. A goal's a goal. That's a striker.
Loves it. Yeah, I was the same as you. The foe on the sidelines as well. He goes up cheering, and it's literally like they've won the league in that particular moment. He's absolutely over the moon about it. You're right. He needs to gamble, and he needs to get that. There was a lot of that in terms of our pressure, forcing mistakes. Maybe not something that we've seen a bit over the last month or so. Tempo, probably linked to pressing there, but closing down the goalkeeper. Inexplicable decision from him to try and lob it back over Morelos to the right back rather than just rolling it out to the left back. But no complaints here, and as we said, no complaints at all from Morelos. And
he won a penalty not long after, which Borna, I don't know whether it's just me, but I can read left side. I think I can read left-sided players a lot better than I can read right-sided players when it comes to penalties.
They always go to that side.
Well, it does seem a body shape thing. I don't know, but the goalie certainly read it and made the stop. I dare say, though, if we could have picked which penalty out the 3 Borna missed this week, it probably would have been that one. The manager did say he expected Borna to want to be on them moving forward. Said he wasn't short of volunteers, though. He said Jermaine Defoe was raging that he was too late on the park to get to it. Had he been on a couple of minutes earlier, he would have certainly grabbed that ball. But, conceded the late one. Bit of slackness there. Welcome to Ibrox from Jack Simpson. You make your debut and everybody's, hey, Jack Simpson. And then could have done a wee bit better at the goal. And suddenly everybody's like, that's Rangers, son. You'll need to get used to it, even at 4-0 up.
Yeah, he was a wee bit slack. Obviously, we'll give him some slack as well, given the game that he's come into. It's his first appearance. But yeah, maybe just a wee bit hesitant, lets it run across him, doesn't make a necessarily challenge. But yeah, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt there. And it's a consolation. It's a really good finish as well. It's I would imagine, I don't know what foot McNulty shoots with. I would imagine that's his weaker side as well. And to curl that in the corner from there is a decent finish as well, to be honest.
That sounded like a metaphor there, but it really wasn't. He was just genuinely wondering which was his stronger foot, folks. Just before anybody complains to Ofcom about us on that one, it was as intended. But great one, solid victory. Nice to see a few goals. Nice to go into the last 20 minutes, with it done. And the only real issue, I suppose, coming out of it was another injury, this time to Ryan Jack. But the manager did say that he's hopeful that they've caught it before it became an injury. But the good news, Adam, and certainly for you as a Tav obsessive, was the fact that the manager says he's expecting both James Tavernier and Kemar Ruth back in 2 to 3 weeks, which, given how it looked the other night, I think all of us would have gladly accepted that.
Oh yeah, 100%. So going by the calendar, there's maybe we know he recovers quite quickly from these things. I think I don't know what the injury was last January. But he recovered from that really quickly. There's possibly an argument he came back a little bit too soon from that one, given what was going on in terms of Rangers' performances. But we would hope he's got an outside chance of coming back for the St Mirren game, I would have thought. If not, it will be the game after that, which is obviously after the international break, pending any European games. So if things go the way that we hope over the next couple of weeks and we end up with Rangers St Mirren, well, is that the way we hope it? I guess I'm not sure. People will probably want to claim it at Parkhead, but if we expect Celtic to drop points in the next couple of games, it could be claimed against St Mirren. So you'd really want him back for that game at some point, wouldn't you?
If we could win against St Mirren, I want him on the bench, even if he needs helped onto the park to come on in the last few minutes. Yes, absolutely. I think the guy has very much earned that, and I would love to see that. But look, we can't control things out with our sphere of influence. We'd done our job, and then I think, firstly, incidentally, it's funny because it's them, but I'm not mad keen on 7:30 on a Sunday being a precedent for a kick-off time, Adam.
No, he said we can't control outside our sphere of influence. I think if we could control this, we probably still wouldn't have been able to do it as badly as Celtic have this
True.
season, which is quite funny. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it at all. It's funny, see when it's a game you're not invested in, like an English game or a Serie A game or whatever, I just wouldn't think twice about that fixture. But see if Rangers are playing at 7:30 on a Sunday, I'd be like, no way, what is this? Get it away.
Especially when hopefully we're moving towards crowds coming back, then 7:30 to travel to Dingwall. And I get that wasn't a factor right now. I get that. But even so, like I say, it's funny because it's them, because they had to wait all weekend to then watch their team lose to Ross County. So that was great. And it added a wee extra buzz on a Sunday night for us. But I wouldn't want to see in the future it become a regular thing, because it's not, as you say, you're fine to watch Arsenal Brighton or whatever on a Sunday night, but for me, funny enough, I'd watched the English game that was on at the time, and it was a 7 p.m. kickoff, so it finished a bit early, and I turned over. I thought, might as well watch, I'm sure they'll go on and win it. And they were rotten. They were really, really bad, and thoroughly deserved. Great to see Jordan White, a bear, pop up with the winner. He enjoyed that a fair bit, I think it's fair to say, when he scored that goal. And listen, you and I put our necks on the line when Celtic signed Diego Laxalt. Adam and I did an Italian football show on Heart and Hand on Patreon, and we watch a fair bit of Italian football, so we were very au fait with Diego Laxalt, and genuinely, no joking, we said this at the time, he was a joke figure on our show because he was so bad, and to us he really represented Milan's decline over the last 10 years, that this guy had got a regular start for them. I was genuinely surprised when they signed him. I was even more surprised the way they tried to kid themselves on that he was a good player. He's fucking rotten.
Yeah, I think we said okay defensively, but he just can't attack at all. He's just not got it. He's a wing back in Serie A, which is a completely different concept to playing as a left back or a wing back in Scotland. So it doesn't work on that level at all. He can't cross the ball. Like it's impossible. The game that we played against him at Ibrox, I think he had like 15 crosses and didn't complete one of them. He can't do it. Right. And I took great delight in watching Sports Scene last night and watching Michael Stewart try to analyse him, and he pretty much said the same. Like, he wants to go in on the underlap every time. You get him on the outside and he crosses the ball out the park. He can't do it. He's got a lot of industry, and obviously he made that world famous 15 tackles in one 15. Game that they got beat, which
they lost. Yeah, I think it was 4.
Yeah, I think 15 tackles is more important than 4 goals conceded, as far as the commentators were concerned. There, it seemed to be of more value, which was nice for them.
Well, it's the treble that they're going for. They played well for an hour at Ibrox trophy, the most tackles in a defeat trophy, and we pure made loads of chances tonight trophy.
Yeah, but I think you're right. I think he can't defend. He's not going to be on an insignificant amount of money playing for AC Milan and coming to Celtic on loan. I'm not sure about loan fees or anything with it as well, but just another example of the shit show across the road, really, in terms of deifying him. Sutton and a lot were saying what a player he is, he's this and he's that, and he wasn't doing anything. It's like they just have to hang their hat on something. He was fine.
Emerson Heinemann syndrome. that when things are so shite, that if somebody turns up and is not shite, that's all, not great, not good, but just not shite, you go, wow! And you're desperate for him to be a success, and it just hasn't been the case.
I used to get a lot of flack on Twitter for comparing Tavernier to Tierney at the time, that Tavernier wasn't as good as he is now, and Tierney was obviously the best fullback in the league. I think at that time it was fair to say there wasn't much competition, and I would always say, well, look at the output offensively, and at the time the overall output of Celtic was so much better that it was maybe a wee bit of a misconception. But if you look at it in basic terms, when you're playing a 4-4-2 diamond, the only width that you get are from your fullbacks. So they've got Laxalt on one side and John Joe Kenny on the other side. I don't think they've got 2 assists between them this year, never mind goals. That's your main source of creativity on the flanks, and they can't cross the ball and they can't score goals. It's a big issue for them. It's why we've got the opposite. We've got it's sometimes our only source of creativity, but that's fine because they've got about, I don't know, fucking 50 goals and assists between them this season. Like that's the point. That's why they're there. So it's a very valid observation to say, okay, he's a fullback, and yes, apparently their primary objectives are they should be able to defend first. But when they're the main source of creativity wide and they play the way that Laxalt plays, I don't know what you're expecting.
On that, and just moving the conversation on, much as it is funny to sit and laugh at them, and please feel free to do so, folks. We'll certainly be doing it plenty over the next few months, and I do mean months, folks. If you're one of those Celtic fans who listens into this, you have no idea what you're in for. But on that, it has been one of the things about Rangers play. I think we're pretty famous for our fullback play and what they deliver, and the link up that they have with the guys in front of them. But you mentioned there that old argument, if you like, of whether or not a fullback's primary job these days is defending, or is there more to it than that? And I had always classed myself in the, well, actually, no, it's, defend first and then we'll talk about what you can do going forward. But old man shouting at cloud, I've sort of come round to, it's maybe a third of it now. It's still a part, but I'm just not sure it is the majority. And this is not just Rangers related. When I watch games from all around Europe, Liverpool are another example of it, that I do wonder if managers will put up with a little bit less defensive solidity if they trust their centre-backs and their defensive midfielders for guys who can do what Tav and Borna Barisic do for us.
Yeah, it's the risk versus reward thing. They'll look at it and they'll think there will be weaknesses behind the fullbacks. I think 90% of our goals scored have came from crosses in from fullback areas or taking advantage of space behind the fullbacks. That's a fact. That's a known issue. There's going to be a flaw in the Vesta, if you like, and it's the risk and reward of it. You look at it and you think, okay, well, how many opportunities are opposition teams going to get within a game down those flanks? I don't know, 3 or 4. Okay, how good are our centre backs that if a cross comes into the box, are they going to be able to clear it away? And it's that subsection that you're thinking, okay, so there might be one chance a game. However, on the flip side, if I have Borna Barisic and Tavernier rampaging forward every game, they might contribute 2 goals a game rather than potentially one chance because of theirs. So it's just that balancing act. I think it's really, really, really pronounced in our team. But I think that's because we've got those 2 players. We've built the team to do that. We've got Jack, we've got Kamara who cover in there. Got Golson and Helander who are comfortable in possession and can go out and cover as well. I think it's testament that we don't really hear too much of there's Tavernier or there's Barisic caught out of position again and we've been done on the counter. We don't really hear that anymore, and it's because it's a team effort and we've built the team in a way that gives us that defensive solidity, but we're still able to get them forward. They're not wing backs. They don't play as wing backs. Their position isn't, their starting position isn't as a wing back. So in effect, Celtic's players, when they play that 3 at the back, their wing backs actually start further forward than ours. They're full backs who get forward ridiculously high. So it's really testament to the management team that they've recognised that opportunity there and they've built the rest of the team around it. And yes, there will be moments where we get caught. You think Hamilton away, we got done by Davis covering down the flanks when Tavernier was up the park. Those are known issues. I'm sure the management team see that, but for me, it's the risk reward part of it. Yeah,
it's just interesting the way that the game evolves. I'm sure that there were people 50 years ago going, "What do you mean they're not playing 2-3-5?" It's football changes, and positions adapt over the years. Defensive midfielder, I think, has probably been the biggest one. 25 years ago, it was the water carrier, famously. That was what Eric Cantona described Didier Deschamps as, whereas now teams will spend millions on a guy who can do that, because you really notice if a team don't have an effective one.
And I guess the flip side of that is we're possibly seeing the death of a central midfielder, in the sense that we would say like a Gaza or someone like that, because of the tactical onus that needs to be on those central midfielders now. You think of us, you think of Liverpool, they need to cover laterally. They've maybe not got as much opportunity to go and roam forwards. It's more the next level up, the attacking midfielders, that have got that freedom to go and roam. So we're maybe seeing a wee bit of a switch there, and the central midfielders for me are a wee bit unloved just now. There's not that many in there that you think are those type of maverick geniuses anymore. They're all pretty hardy and solid and shuttlers, and they're decent passers, and they can do a little bit of everything. But they're maybe having to take a little bit of a back seat because of this boom of fullbacks we've seen over the last 10, 12 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dani Alves was the first time I noticed and thought, right, okay, that Barcelona side, and I thought, okay, this is different. And people say, play him in right midfield, and he would say, no, don't, because then my starting position's totally different and it won't work. And that was the first I thought, there's something going on here. Okay, so we are 7 points from the title. We've 8 games in which to get them. We're going to. I think even the most, one game at a time, I don't believe it's done. At the back of their mind, I think they might be telling themselves that, but I think deep down they believe it. It would take, a meteor hitting the planet, I think, to stop us from winning it from here. The Europa League, I think, might prove an excellent thing in terms of keeping the focus, because if it was just the league, then it could run out. It could. And we have this game coming up on Thursday. Now, I'm very, very confident in our ability to get through European games at a certain level, but 4-3 up away from home, so you've got the away goals. The team need to beat us by 2 clear goals or 5-4, and I don't see us defending as badly as that 2 weeks in a row. No,
and I think when you look at that, what you just said there, the team needs to beat us by 2 clear goals. 100 and what we at now, 155 games for Gerrard, and I think it's 3 times that's happened, 3 or 4 times that a team's beaten us by, certainly 5 or less, a team's beaten us by 2 clear goals. You think of the teams that we've played, Antwerp did manage to get 3 goals, which I'm sure was a bit of a worry in terms of the first goal, certainly with the set pieces, and the space for the third goal in front of the midfield. I'm sure the manager did recognise that those were issues that they'll resolve. I can't see that happening 2 games in a row. So it's a big task for Antwerp. I think Rangers will be interesting to see how we approach it. Do we go and try and get the goal early doors that just makes it an insurmountable task, or do we feel our way into the game? It's an interesting element is obviously, David, that we have a free weekend as well. That might help us in terms of our thinking. We like to empty the tank in these type of games, so I'm really looking forward to it, and fingers crossed we can get the result that we need. And I think you're right. I think if we have that here, it's going to keep us in focus for the league, because a game or 2 and it's over, really, as far as we're concerned, and then it would just be playing out the last 5 or 6 games. So having that there, hopefully we can get through, and it gives us a nice little incentive to go and put on our best performances in Europe.
Realistically, do you think we are going to see a Scottish Cup this season? I've got to admit now, we're going to be into March before the lower leagues are back. I can't see how this is feasible. If it was like at the quarters, that's different, but it's not. And the big teams hadn't come in yet. I just don't see where the gaps are to play this.
Unless I know there would need to be a little bit of shuffling with the league and maybe bringing a few things forward. I think I seen something earlier on that we might have a gap of a month between games if we don't have if we don't fill that with the Scottish Cup. So unless they bring the league games forward and then play it as like a little mini tournament, I'm not sure. But obviously the precedent was last season they moved it, but that was just semi-finals and finals, right? It wasn't the entire thing. So
yeah.
Unless they do it as some kind of mini tournament over 2 weeks or so, it would be interesting. But like you said, it all depends on what happens with the lower leagues, if that's something that they can't they can't do, then I guess that's the most important thing. But for me, it's all about league and Europa League just now. Get the league tied up as quickly as we can, and hopefully we get through the Europa and see how that goes.
What's it going to mean to you when we clinch this title? Because last night I couldn't get to sleep. Head was just buzzing, and a lot of different thoughts, as happens, at 4 in the morning, lying in bed awake. A lot of things were drifting in, and I realised that for all I talk about it, and for all the thought I give it, which is a lot, because it's also what I do for a living as well as my hobby, but I realised that there's a lot of kind of pent up emotion that hasn't came out that is going to. And logically, I can tell myself, right, it's going to be this and it's going to be that. But I'm getting these wee sort of things almost bursting through at the moment, just saying, no, actually, this is going to be overwhelming for you personally. And I imagine that'll be the same for most Rangers fans.
It's interesting because I'm kind of the same as you. I'm going to use a word here that I don't really like to use, but it's seeping out, I think, rather than an explosion. Like we think about 2003, 2005, and it literally was a moment of complete euphoria. I think most people have certainly since the game at Ibrox against Celtic, I've certainly said, and I've said that in a number of pods, I thought that was it. You look at that game and you think there's no way we're not winning this league, or it's heavily stacked in our favour. So I've kind of been, there's people that don't want to talk about it until it's complete. I've kind of been emotionally preparing myself for it since then. And then I think that the next benchmark for me was that Hibs away game that everybody pegged on the 26th of January. Getting through that and getting through that month in particular kind of gave me the belief that the January curse was over. So in a way, every time we win another game now, I'm almost just like, okay, that's another little bit and another little bit. But I feel like I'm celebrating a little bit every day just now, and it's making me quite happy. It will be a complete outpouring of joy, but it's a very interesting one in terms of the trickle effect of it. When we do finally seal it, it will be an absolute outpouring of joy, but it's been strange in that way because we're used to the drama and we're used to the last minute wins and we're used to going there and coming back, but it's been a procession since, if you're being really, really honest about it and flipping, it's been a procession since Parkhead, really, when we've not put a beat wrong and they've collapsed. We always said on the pod, you need a regression from the champion to have a decent chance of winning the title. We probably haven't needed that this year, but obviously it would have been a bit closer if we had. So the two sides of that has meant that it's really came about for me over the last couple of weeks and months that I've been preparing myself for it. But I'll still certainly still shed a tear when it's official.
Yeah, I think that's probably the key thing, that I can tell myself, you're preparing for this, and you've known this was coming for a while. But when it happens, when it's confirmed, my brain is just telling me, look, David, just being honest with you now, mate, you're going to go fucking gaga. In a great way, an endorphin release that's going to be better than any chemical that you can imagine. It's just going to be absolutely wonderful, because you mentioned there about going places and coming back. We went to a place we'd never been before, and therefore I suppose it's not surprising that when we get back from it, we're going to have a newfound appreciation for just what it means and just what 55 means to all of us. And even just little things. My nephew's 14. He doesn't know a Rangers title winning, in his conscious age. He doesn't know. He was 3. This is new, this is exciting, and it's that, and you just look round and see what it means to everyone of all generations, and can't wait. Cannot wait. Right, folks, the best place, of course, to spend time and celebrate that with us is on Heart and Hand on Patreon, which is patreon.com/Heart and Hand, where there are loads of shows, and trust me, there's going to be an awful lot of shows coming out in the next few months dealing with this, and you're welcome to come and be a part of it, just $1.99 per month. But if not, and you just like to continue to listen to us on the free shows, that's absolutely wonderful, and we appreciate the support. My thanks to Adam.
Cheers, David.
And our thanks to our producers in London, Mike Lee and Paul Myers. Mike Myers is a much scarier proposition indeed. Thank you for listening to me. Cammy will be back with Extra this week on Friday, where he will cover what happened in the match against Antwerp. I'll be back probably 2 weeks because we don't have a game next weekend. So there will be a show next week, but I doubt it'll be a report because obviously there's no match to talk about. But till then, stay safe, take care, and dream of 55. Bye-bye.